All right, we're back with another guest on this week of the podcast. I'm so excited to have Emelyn here today. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me. Super excited.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. You're another one of the people that I've connected with via TikTok, and these are always like the best conversations, honestly.
Can you believe it's been, I think, when was it? Like 2 years ago since we've last connected? I think it was like
Something like that.
when I started my first marathon. Oh my gosh, that feels like ages ago.
I know, I feel like you've lived like 5 lifetimes
I
between
know,
then and
right?
now.
Feels like it.
I can't imagine. Yeah, and we're going to dive all into that because that's part of what got you to where you are today, which, spoiler, you're training for your first Ironman and you're training for Chicago?
Yes. Well, Chicago training hasn't started, thankfully. Although
Mm,
I would say that this Ironman training is prepping me for that.
yeah.
Lots of cross training, which is amazing.
So much cross training. Uh, yeah, so we'll dive in that later. But first, I want to know, how did you get into running? And like, what did you do as a child? What sports and everything?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the first sport that I can ever remember is swimming. So
Okay.
that's a little context for Ironman training. Yeah, that was the very first thing that I did. I think I was like 3 years old when I first started. And then I just came to love it as a child, like lessons wise. And then I guess I was pretty good at it to the point where my parents were like, okay, let's put you in a swim club.
Oh,
And so I started swimming competitively. But you can imagine swimming competitively as a child can do a number to your mental health. So eventually I was like, Mom, I want to stop. And then got into, the typical sports in high school, like basketball, volleyball, track and field. But I only did short distances, no more than 400 meters. And
nice.
I did long jump and triple jump. So, I did a lot of different things, hence why you probably see that reflected in my content. Um, and then, yeah. And then as I started like corporate life, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I feel like I've lost my identity. I don't want to become like this 9 to 5 girl and that's it. And then I took up kickboxing actually.
Oh,
And yeah, very different to, what I used to do. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. Again, very technical. I enjoyed it. But actually, the number one thing that my coach at the time told me to work on was my cardio because I couldn't keep up with the duration of the sessions because I actually wanted to fight. And then he's like, you should probably start running. And so I was talking to Kian, who's my partner right now, and we were chatting about it and how I was like, I got to work on my cardio. And at that time, I was already inspired by him because he was training for an Ironman at the time.
mm.
And he was like, why don't you sign up for a marathon? I was like, no way. Like, ew, like who would want to run for that long? He's like, what about a half? And I was like, okay. So he planted the seed. I started to like kind of run here and there. The typical, once you start running, had no idea what I was doing. And then I just signed up for my first half marathon. Again, didn't know what the fueling was all about. I just took like, I think it was Cliff Blocks with me.
Mm.
And I just took one and then just thought, okay, I'll just eat a few every now and then as I start my first half. And yeah, bonked, like struggled. I survived, but like again, that's when I was hooked because I didn't know that's what race vibes were like. I didn't know the running community was like that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get into it. And yeah, the rest is history.
That is not the story I was expecting you to say.
I know it's like a very like up and down, going backwards and forwards. Yeah. I
I
like
know.
dabbled in a lot of things.
Yeah, I have found from everyone I've talked to, like through this podcast and just through running in general, the ones who are still loving running today tended to do a lot of different things as a child, sport wise. So you're just another living proof of that.
Yep.
I'm still hung up on the fact that you wanted to fight in kickboxing, though. What happened to
Yeah,
that dream?
I know. I don't know. I think because like I just fell in love with running so much. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm
Mm.
just going to run away from people rather than like fight them. But I think I still kind of have this personality where, I'm a 5'2" girl, so I'm quite small. And some people think, oh, she's so cute and so fragile. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I can fight you if I wanted to. And I think at that time I wanted to prove that. to show people that I'm actually tougher than I look. And it was just something that, again, and I think this is a lot. This is very common with a lot of sports you see, is that there weren't a lot of girls, and I wanted to be a representative for that and to show and inspire girls that you can do anything you put your mind to, and fighting was one of them. But yeah, unfortunately, that kind of switched. Now it's running. It's still the same thing.
Yeah, very similar. Do you
Yeah.
think you'll ever go back to kickboxing one day?
I mean, I've thought about it. I was like, hey, maybe after the marathon, I'll just like kind of dabble a little bit and see, but I don't know. I don't know if I
Yeah.
can handle it.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you don't strike me as someone who dabbles.
Oh my gosh. No, yeah, that's so true. I'm like 0 to 100. And
Yeah.
then if I like get bored, I'm going to switch to something else and go 0 to 100 again.
So, what race was your first half?
It was here in Vancouver. So the BMO marathon, they also do the half. So that was the first one.
Nice. Is that a bigger race?
Yeah, I would say here in Vancouver, it's probably the biggest one.
Okay.
It's like the marathon here in Vancouver. And then obviously I did the half, but there are other half marathons like here in the city. But I feel like this one, because the marathon is tied to it, it's like the big one.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of funny how you bonked, but then you were like, I love this sport.
I know, right? But I think it's also one of those like, I don't know if you know this audio, but then like at the end, it's like, oh, I think I can do this better. And then you like try to redeem yourself. Yeah, that was me. I was like, I need to redeem myself.
That makes sense. So then from there, did you keep doing half marathons, or is that when you went straight to the marathon?
No, I did a bunch of 10Ks in prep for the next half marathon that I wanted to PB. And I got a coach because, again, I knew nothing about it. And so that's where I learned how to feel properly, like do an easy run versus like a speed run and a long run. I was like, what? I didn't know there were these different types of structures. And then, but I wanted to focus on speed. So I stuck to 10Ks, and then I was like, okay, let's do the half. And then, after that second half marathon, what's the next step? Oh, okay, the marathon.
Yeah. And then, so were you already creating content before you signed up for the marathon, or was that kind of the impetus?
Oh
or
my
like
gosh.
COVID too, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, so fun fact, I actually have been creating content since 2012, but
Whoa.
I was a beauty and fashion / DIY YouTuber.
No way.
Yeah. So, the dabbling. Yeah, that was actually the very first type of content that I was creating. And then, it was YouTube days. I didn't, this was prior to Instagram. And then, Instagram started. That was a fashion account. Actually, my account today, that has gone through a lot of evolution. And then, after that, it slowly went into like personal lifestyle, and then, running before COVID. And then actually I kind of took a break after COVID and went to home decor.
Oh.
Because I moved in 2021. I moved and I was like, oh, new projects. Oh, I got to showcase this content.
Yeah.
And then when we were able to sign up for races again, that's when I signed up for my first marathon. And then I was like, oh, let's document this through TikTok, because TikTok was new to me at the time. And then I just went full swing, as you've noticed, into creating my running journey there.
Yeah. You have so much content out there. I'm so impressed. I just don't know how you do it.
Yeah, I guess it's like, since I started back in 2012, it's almost some ways of working. It's just pretty automated for me. It's kind of like second nature almost. I don't know if that's sad or impressive, but I think like short form content's one of those like, oh, okay, I can cut and splice and whatnot because, I've had years of experience doing it. And then, just recently decided to go back to YouTube and make that switch for Ironman. But it's hard to balance it all. That's for sure.
I can imagine, because you're also working full time while doing all this training and documenting all the training.
Yeah.
Which is, I think the hardest thing for me about creating any sort of content that's not like educational or like for Instagram where you just like go on Canva and make something that's like the easy kind of content is just the forethought and be like, okay, if I'm going to make a reel or TikTok out of my run today, I need to film myself warming up or getting dressed or on the run, all these little pieces. And so, yeah, whenever I see like your stuff, I'm like, wow, that must take so
Oh,
much time.
it does in a way. And again, it's like at the beginning when I first started, it was definitely a bit hard. But
Mhm.
I got to a point where I was like, okay, you know what? Just like sit your camera here, just document it as if, you're doing whatever. Obviously, you'll get used to whatever angles
Mhm.
works for you. And then like, when I'm on my run, I try to pretend that I'm just talking to a friend. And it does force me to run at a conversational pace because I can
Yeah.
talk to the camera. And if I can't talk to the camera, it means I'm not running at an easy effort. So it's a good reminder in that sense. But yeah, it got to a point where I'm like, okay, you know what? Don't think about creating content, just document it, because at the end of the day, it is for myself and to
Mhm.
see, how far I've come. And it's fun to look back at. Yeah. I'm just thinking about the old videos that I had on YouTube. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've come so far.
I can imagine. I feel like that's like a lot of us on Instagram and back when, we were all using those filters when
Oh
we were
my
first
God.
posting photos. And it's like, I remember one of my first photos was just a picture of like my parents' like patio door and our deck with a filter on it. And I was like,
Yeah.
what is this? Why did I post this?
My favorite filter is Valencia. I think that's
Ooh,
still on there. I remember
I
I was
think
like
so.
just scrolling through all like the filters. I'm like,
Hmm.
does anyone still use this?
Probably not. I always liked what was the one that was like the really vibrant colors? Do you remember that
Oh,
one?
yes. I do know the one that you're talking about, but I forgot the name.
Me too. But that was like my go-to. Or sepia.
Oh,
Sepia is a
yes.
classic.
That's a classic.
Yeah. Well, back to running. How was it training for your first marathon? Were you doing cross training at the same time too? Like, because you did love swimming and everything.
Yeah, no. So very first marathon, I was like, this is the only thing I'm focusing on. And so it was really just running, and I ran 4 days a week, I think. And then I
Hmm.
did supplement it with strength training. So
Nice.
I could have done a little bit more strength training, but I think I did at least once or twice a week.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like all of us could do a little more strength training.
I know, it says every runner, right?
Yeah, I feel like just doing some in general is a win
Yeah.
with runners. And then how was your first marathon experience?
Oh my gosh. It was okay. People will probably judge me, but I still to this day watch like the vlog that my partner had captured of me because
Oh.
it just brings back all the first time memories. Like honestly, like this is like the number one advice I could just tell every first time marathoner is like literally soak it all in,
Hmm.
which was what I did because I knew it was my first one. And that day just goes by so fast. But I do remember I was so nervous because this was 2 to 3 years in the making because I wanted to run my first marathon in 2020, but obviously we all know what
Mm,
happened.
yeah.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is actually happening. And yeah, it went by so quickly. Um, I enjoyed it. It's definitely a tough course because it's not flat at all. And
Mm.
I only trained on flats. So that was definitely a lesson of mine. And then, yeah, I guess towards the end is when I start to feel in the calves. And then I had
Mm.
my iconic finish line where I just collapsed and then the medics came and it was all captured in photos.
I couldn't remember if that was that marathon or if it was a different one, but I
That was the
remember seeing that.
first,
What a way to finish your first
right?
marathon.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
definitely
feel
a good
like,
story.
yeah, you like truly gave it your all. You
Hmm.
literally fell over.
Yeah.
How long did it take to recover from that?
Honestly, not that long. Like they plopped me on a wheelchair, they massaged my calf out, gave me some water, and then probably after 5 minutes, I was able to walk again. Sure,
Hmm.
I felt it in my calves a bit, but the
Yeah.
next day, besides feeling all groggy, the body was fine.
Nice. That's kind of surprising.
Right?
Yeah. I feel like that's people are always amazed after like ultras how quickly you can bounce back. Like my husband's always whenever I run an ultra, he's like, "How are you walking the next day?" I'm like, "I don't know. I feel pretty fine." I mean, I'm not
Oh my
running yet for
gosh.
sure, but
Yeah, it's always wondered. Like, that's just so many miles.
okay, a 50K isn't much farther than a marathon though.
I guess so. But it just that extra 8K. And like plus the elevation gain.
Yeah, but okay, so what I've heard, I've actually never run a road marathon, so I can't say for certain. But I have heard road marathons, like when you're racing them, are harder than ultras because ultras are like there's a lower intensity, you're running on trails and it's very
Yeah.
terrain versus like marathon is very much, same step right after another.
Yeah, I actually can relate to that because I'm also comparing marathon training to Ironman training. And
Mm,
although the distance is a lot longer, and yes, there's different disciplines, but the bike and the swim is very low impact, and like the run, it's it's not that it's not as intense as like say if you were training for a marathon, and there's just so much, road impact. And I'm like, wow, I can actually recover more quickly than
yeah,
when I was marathon training. It's so fascinating.
it is. Yeah, I feel like marathon training is one of the most brutal trainings out there, especially if you don't cross train or strength train and you are just strictly running because it's just so
Yeah,
repetitive.
yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah. So then after that marathon, how did it feel to finish that? Were you like really excited to sign up for another race, or did you have that period where, when after a race when you're kind of in that little depression period where you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah, I think because of how I finished, I was like, I need to redeem myself. And of course, eager me was like, let's sign up for another one in the same year. And looking back, I kind of wish I didn't do that.
Mm.
But, I did. And I signed up for CIM.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
that was December. And then, yeah, I guess I had a little bit of a break. So summer, I enjoyed it, did all the summer activities. And then I think, was it August or September? That's when we started training for CIM. And then that's when my partner decided to train for it as well. So we were both
Oh,
training for the same race, which was really fun.
yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out like what happened. I mean, I still got a PB, which was great. But I think I really wanted to crack a sub 4.
Mm.
So the first marathon was a 4:13, I think. Yeah, 4:13. And then this one, CIM, was a 4:03. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so close. And my calf cramped again. So it's like,
Oh no.
well, okay, I need to work on more strength training. I need to eat more, drink more like water,
Yeah.
probably lots of salt, all the things. So yeah. Then I was like, hey, you know what? I need to peel back and like just focus on shorter distances.
Yeah, yeah, that is when I remember you made that switch into, you went back to 10Ks, didn't you?
Yeah. And
What a painful distance.
yeah, I didn't enjoy it. Okay, to be honest, last year was not a fun time. To be fair though, like it was from a life perspective, I had a tough time, just like,
Mm.
with the layoffs and all the restructuring and all that was happening, that was definitely impacting, my mental health. And then on top of that, I was just kind of stressing myself out and putting a lot of pressure on myself because, 10K, it's a shorter distance. I can
Mm.
totally like push myself, but no, it's a different beast in itself. Um, is a special guest
Yeah,
coming on?
yeah. I'm trying to get him
So
to hop up on my
excited.
lap, but he's like, nah, come on.
Which one's this one?
This is Pumpkin.
Oh, I see why now. Aw.
Yeah. I just don't understand. Sometimes he just walks around meowing. I'm just like, just jump up here. You know you're allowed up here.
Aw.
But yeah, the short distances are so painful. I always find it amusing how non-runners, when you say you're training for like a 5K or a 10K, they're like, can't you just do that tomorrow? And I'm just like, not as fast as I want to.
Yeah, yeah. I totally like get that. When I started training for the shorter distances, it felt like people didn't really care. Like I guess general public didn't really care. But
Hmm.
when I switched to that, I was like, I actually wish I was training for a marathon because I don't have to push myself.
Yeah, when I talked to Diane on here, she said that she thinks that like a 5K is harder than a marathon just because you're pushing so hard for 5K, like the
Yeah.
whole time. You're like redlining versus a marathon. You're pushing, but there's a lot more time to course correct and just like obviously you can't hold the same intensity for the length of a marathon.
Yeah, 100%. Like my lungs are just screaming like towards the end of a 5K. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, that's not my favorite.
Do you enjoy speed workouts or do you just dislike the short race settings compared to marathon?
I do enjoy speed workouts. I would say not as much anymore. I think
Oh.
I used to love them like a lot and, you know, I'd look forward to looking at, you know, the intervals and how quick I
Mhm.
can get. But I don't know. Now I'm like, I just want to take my time. Just chill. You know, maybe an ultra is in the next near future.
Yeah, I mean, I highly recommend.
I know,
I
I hear it's
actually,
beautiful.
yeah, so I was supposed to go to Vancouver August of 2020. Obviously,
Oh,
didn't happen
yeah.
because I was going to run not an ultra, but the Squamish
Oh,
50-50.
yeah.
I was going to do the 25K.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I hear a lot of good things about that. And they sell out really quickly.
so fast. Yeah, I had like planned everything the December before, so December 2019, because I think that's when registration had opened,
Mhm.
and then like I booked all our flights, our Airbnbs, and everything. And then we all know what happened after that. It was
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, and then
no.
like the border between the U.S. and Canada didn't open for another years.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
wild times. But
do you
that's an
ever
option for
plan?
you.
Yeah, that's true. Do you ever plan on going and doing it again? Or have you ever done it?
I haven't done it. I haven't been to Canada.
Oh my gosh, you should.
I know. Yeah, I actually, at one point when I was thinking about where I wanted to live, I was thinking about Vancouver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it
I
just seems like a cool city.
Yeah, I mean, I love that there's mountains, there's beaches. I mean,
Hmm.
not the most beautiful beaches, but the beach still.
Yeah, that's one thing we are lacking here severely.
But you got all the mountains.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes they are a little farther than I would hope, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like the good trails, because it's at least like an hour drive, which like not terrible, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the most convenient.
No, it's not like if you lived in the mountains.
Yeah, that's
Goals
fair.
one day.
One day. Oh my gosh, it's so expensive living by the mountains.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I heard Canada is very expensive now
Yeah.
after.
I don't know. I have no words. It's just, I'm just shaking my head.
Have you always been in Canada?
Yeah, born and raised.
Oh,
I
nice.
just, yeah, I feel like this is definitely going to be my home base. Again, nature, right?
Hmm.
And it just has the good combination of the things that I like to do. And I don't know, I think especially Vancouver, it just supports that lifestyle, the active lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah, it seems like you're really close to a lot of things, and especially I imagine for triathlon training now because you have water nearby, which I'm assuming it's nice to practice in. Have you practiced in open water yet?
No, not yet. It's still too cold.
Oh, that makes sense. I
Yeah,
forget what time
so
of year it is.
yeah. Hopefully soon, but it's definitely getting colder again.
Oh,
Yeah, not fun.
no. Have you ever swam in open water?
I have, but only for fun. So I
Hmm.
don't know what it's going to be like when I'm actually focusing on like a stroke.
Yeah, and with like a lot of people around you in the race.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Um. Anyway, where were we before? Short distances.
short distances, yeah.
And that was right before you got burnt out on running, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like again, I think it got to my head and this happened to me the first time I started training, whereas like I I tied my self-worth and self-identity to the times. And I was
Mm.
like, I'm going to be accepted as a runner. I'm going to be a better runner if I achieve X amount of time. And especially like because I was starting to get traction on TikTok, for example, it's like I have to
Hmm.
set an example. I have to show that, you know, I'm gaining experience and I'm becoming a better runner. And then that actually just like, yeah, I think I shot myself in the foot, like doing that and thinking that way. And I just put so much pressure on myself,
Mm-hmm.
unnecessary pressure, where I was like, I don't like this anymore. This is not fun. And to the point where I actually injured myself because I was just pushing myself even harder. And during times of stress, like work wise,
Yeah.
um, I just didn't take time to myself to just kind of decompress and be like, just chill. It's like, it's for fun. You know, I'm not like trying to qualify for the Olympics or anything. So,
Yeah, it's definitely, I feel like a lot of runners go through that lesson because, especially when you're going up in distance, it's natural to finish one distance and be like, okay, I'm going to move on to the next and then just keep going up. And then once you reach the marathon, then it's like, okay, do I keep doing marathons or do you do what you did? You go back to shorter races. But I feel like we're constantly on this like hamster wheel to always be training for a race. And it's like,
yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah.
It gets really tough, especially I can't imagine having like the following that you have on socials and feeling that kind of pressure because a lot of us feel pressure just by like on Strava and comparing, and that's
My
even
gosh.
without like your followers will see what you're
Yeah.
doing, but it's like on a very minor scale compared to like your TikTok, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. And it's so weird because I was just like, I was just creeping one of my friends on Strava one day, and I was on desktop,
Hmm.
and there's this feature that I hate. Um, it compares your efforts, your
Oh
all-time
yeah.
efforts and PRs, like side by side. And I was like, why? Why do we have to do this? Like,
Yeah.
it's just that's not good. I don't like that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they added that. People are also up in arms right now. I don't know if your mobile app has updated to show the like comparison to your last week of training.
Yeah. I was like,
People don't like that.
I don't like that either. And then like it's red, obviously, if it's
Yeah.
like less, and
Mhm.
like green, I'm like, clearly you know what you're doing.
I know. I don't understand who thought that was good to
Yeah.
be front and center when you open the app every single time.
Yeah.
And like every day it's like this is how you compare to exactly where you were last week.
Yeah.
So when you got burnt out on running, is that when you started Olympic lifting?
I actually started Olympic lifting kind of when I was training for my first marathon. But I
Okay.
was only like learning the movements. And then after my second marathon, I was like, okay, I'm gonna, while I'm training for the shorter distances, let's take up Olympic lifting because I joined the CrossFit gym
Mm.
nearby. And Kane is also a CrossFitter. And he's also an avid Olympic lifter as well. So he's like, why don't you do this? And I was like, okay, sure. So I learned that. Very difficult, very technical, but
Yeah.
it's fun.
It it looks very challenging.
Yeah. But it's one of those like, you know, as a beginner, when you get like this, when you get a PR, for example, or when you manage to get like, when you manage to make the move or the lift, it's like to actually get it up there. It's like, wow, this is so great. And it was a nice distraction, I guess, compared to say, you know, running.
Yeah, it's nice to just switch it up every now and then. Are you still Olympic lifting while you're now training for Ironman?
No, so as much as I want to say I can do it all, I have to sacrifice something. So I put CrossFit and Olympic lifting on the back burner. Yeah, because I don't know if you know, I'm also planning a wedding.
What?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yes. The wedding
Congrats.
happens. Thank you. It's a month after Ironman.
Oh, I do remember you saying that in one of your posts
Yeah.
back when you signed up, I think.
Yeah. Why? I don't know. I don't know. The timing of it all.
Are you planning a bigger wedding? Is there a lot going into it?
Yes, I guess so. It's more than what I had initially
Mm,
thought. It's one of those that kind of ballooned. I mean, it's starting to cut down a little bit, but it's still in like the medium balloon.
mm.
Yeah.
I did not know you had that on your plate too.
Yeah, I think I had a little bit of a breakdown a couple weeks ago, but it's better now because sometimes I'm one of those like I don't need to ask for help. I can do it all, but
Yes.
you know, it's kind of like work where it's like you have a team, you've got friends, you've got family that can help you. So yeah, thankful that I have the support system.
Yeah. Do you have siblings?
I have one little sister.
Okay, I was going to ask if you were the eldest sibling. You seem like a very
Yeah,
first child.
very
Yeah. I'm one
yes, well,
too,
I've been
so.
told. Yeah, the
Takes one
strong
to know
type
one.
A. Yep.
Yep. No asking for help ever.
Yep.
Yep. That's funny. So, after you got a little burnt out on running, how did the idea of the triathlon, Ironman specifically, come into your mind?
Yeah, I can't remember where I was reading this, but I was reading something where, the different mindsets of like, there's the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And
Mhm.
in running, I was like, for some reason, that growth mindset was just not there. And I wanted to go back to that mindset I had when I was training for a marathon. I was like, why
Mhm.
did I like take in everything? Why was I soaking in so well versus like the 10K training? And then I realized, oh, it's because, I was a beginner. I was learning new things. It was just everything was new. And I'm like, maybe I need something like that again. I just need something that will put me back into that beginner mindset that will just help me grow and learn. So I was like, well, I might as well do a triathlon. And the thought process. So I first bought a bike because I'm like, okay, this will help my cross training. It'll get me more outdoors, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
then I was like, okay, so I've got the road bike. I can run. I can, well, I can swim. I just haven't swam in a really long time. I was like, okay, well, you know, there's the sprint try, the Olympic distance try. I was like, that seems too like not challenging enough. It's
Yeah.
not scaring me. And so then half Ironman came into my mind. I'm like, okay, actually 1.9K swim, that's kind of scary. But it was the 90K bike ride because I've never ridden a bike on the road, like clipped in kind of
Mhm.
thing. And so I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that sounds scary. So I was like, okay, maybe let's do that. And so, yeah, I think actually this was funny because I had done, my last 10K race, I think last year. And I was just so angry at myself to the point where I was like, you know what? No, I'm done with running. It's time to just do something completely different. And I think it was either that day or the next day I signed up for a half Ironman. And then the following day after that, I was like, oh no, what did I do? Yeah, that's the ADHD in me.
I feel like that's also a common experience, though.
Yeah.
Just signing up for a race right after
Yeah.
another race, whether
Yeah.
it's another running one or
Or something
otherwise.
completely on the other side of the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. So, with triathlon training, how have you found it compared to like marathon training, 10K training, both in like your enjoyment level, time commitment? Those are the two big things, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually I had this thought a couple of weeks ago and I was like comparing the two. And at first I wasn't really enjoying it because there was just so many things that were involved with triathlon training and having to go out
Yeah.
to the pool and having to get your bike ready, having it to like you have to take care of a bike, like
Mhm.
oil it up and all that and the tires and whatnot. Whereas with running, you can just kind of put your shoes on, activate, and then go out the door. And so I was like frustrated for a bit, but then finally I was able to find my routine. But yeah, I find logistically triathlon training is a lot more complicated than running. I mean, kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I think also too, and I think I mentioned this earlier, marathon training, I feel like is harder physically because it's just so high impact.
Mhm.
And what I like about triathlon training is if I'm like not in the mood to go running, I can just switch my workouts and go
Yeah.
biking instead or go swimming instead, but I'll still get, the fitness achieved because yeah, it's cross training, right?
Mhm.
So I like that because I can switch it around if I'm not in the mood. Um, Nutrition wise, I would say is around the same. I think you really need to focus it on it. And maybe this is just because routine. I'm just so used to like, okay, I know I have to have a pre-run meal. I have to have gels at a certain time. Whereas with triathlon training, it's tricky because even though the bike, for example, is low impact, you might not like feel like you need to eat something because again, it feels easy, but I forgot that you also have to fuel for your run. And so, and you're still burning calories when you're on the bike. So you have to eat it, even though you feel like you feel good, and you have to make sure you're drinking water, because if you don't, the run is going to be terrible. And I learned that the hard way. So yeah, it's one of those tricky things where you feel like you don't need to eat, but you have to, even though you don't feel hungry, for example.
Yeah, I feel like just eating around running alone is sometimes a big challenge, especially if you don't go like first thing in the morning. That's pretty easy because it's just like, okay, grab a bite of something and then out the door. But like,
Mm-hmm.
especially like later in the day, it's like, okay, I need to eat close enough, but not too close so that my stomach's not jostling. But
Yeah,
I don't want to bonk on like this afternoon run. And hydration is always the hardest thing for me because I
same.
probably chronically underhydrate.
Oh my God,
So.
same. Same. And no matter like how many alerts I put on my phone, like I'll see it and I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I just never drink water. It's just so bad, especially in the wintertime.
Yeah, I know. Summer is easier, but then also think it's like my intake increases, but it's also starting out lower than it should. So it's still like not adequate.
Yeah, because you're supposed to drink even more when it
Yeah,
gets warmer. Yeah.
exactly. And then you throw electrolytes in there. I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the exact same way.
Yeah. Um, I've heard that fueling on the bike is much easier than running. So there's
I
at least
mean,
that.
it is now for me, I would say, just because as a beginner cyclist,
Oh, yeah.
having like the one hand and getting the fuel out from like, because the pockets are in the back. And I
Oh.
don't have like a bag to sit on my bike yet to store food or tools or what have you.
Hmm.
So I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this with like one hand? I can do it now, but at the beginning, oh my gosh, it was hard.
Oh, I can imagine. It's like when you're first training for a road race that you have to like fuel on the run versus like ultras are easy because you can start walking.
Yeah. Oh my God, so true.
Yeah. But like, yeah, the half marathon, it's like, no, you're probably going to be running and taking in the fuel at the same time.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
the first
gosh.
times you do it, you're just like, how? How do people do this?
Yeah, that's so funny because when I first started training again for Ironman, the
Hmm.
runs were very short. So I was like, oh, okay. And again, I haven't really been training longer distances. So I didn't really need the fuel, I don't know, since marathon training, for example. And then by the time I started to hit like an hour and a half, I was like, oh, I guess I need to bring gels. And so I brought it. I'm like, wait a minute. How do I do this again? I just felt so rusty because I'm bouncing,
Hmm.
trying to open up this gel. And I'm like, how do I eat this again?
Yeah, it's a skill.
Yeah, totally is.
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like it's like I try to tell my athletes, I'm like, please practice this before race day. Like you need to be able to run and fuel.
Yeah.
But yeah, how is your relationship with running now?
I think it's getting better.
Hmm.
Mainly because I am not alone, I think, in my like in training just in general. I've made an effort to train with a friend, a couple friends actually. They're also signed up for half Ironman, and so
Nice.
and one of them we have the same training plan, so we go out on our interval days and do the run together. So
Mm,
that's been really helpful to know that I'm not alone. And then Runtok,
yeah.
the Runtok Club. So that's been really helpful. Just knowing that, there's a community that I love to be around with helps a lot. So I think um, it's definitely improved versus where last year I just felt like I was alone and wasn't enjoying it. And like, yes, there's the Run Talk community online, but sometimes it's
Not
really
the
nice
same.
it's nice to have people in person.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's a big struggle for a lot of people. And that leads me to was it last year you started your run group?
Yeah. Yeah. I was just like, you know what? Like, what's the worst that can happen? No one show up
Yeah.
when I just put it out to social media. Cause like, I think you commented on this, like the running scene here in Vancouver is very tight knit and very small.
Hmm.
And there's not a lot, like I've talked about my experiences with these run clubs, and a lot of them are really fast paced. And I'm like, I'm not about that. I
Yeah.
just want someone to run with socially. So I was like, I feel like that's kind of missing. So I just put it out to social media. I was like, who wants to run, chill, and, just have coffee and cookies after? And so, yeah, I had a good turnout. And then I was like, let's just do this on a monthly basis. And it's funny because now we've all bonded, and a bunch of us, well, not me, I'm cheering them on, but a bunch of us are running the BMO marathon / half marathon, that big race coming up here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So that's always good to know that you've got like friends who are running the same thing. And then 2 of the friends that I met through Runtok are also doing half Ironman. So it's good to know. Yeah. It's good to know that there's people there with you, and, we've connected through this community. So it's cool to see the progression of friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like Boulder in Colorado here is very similar. It's like all the run groups run so fast. And if you can't run a sub 9-minute pace, 9-minute miles, it's like you're going to be dropped. And then it's like, but there's plenty of runners who want to run like 10 minutes or slower. Yeah. Just want to chill and hang out.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny because like they say, oh, like we welcome everyone, but then there's like a little asterisk, oh, our paces are such and such. And it's like, well, okay, for someone who's new to running or who just wants to actually just run at a chill pace, because that's not an easy effort pace for me at all.
No.
So yeah, I was like, okay, I'm just going to start my own thing and see who shows up. And then like, I try to be explicit and say like, we don't run at a certain pace. We'll wait. We're actually literally a no drop run crew.
Yeah.
And then like I myself will just like run up and down just to make sure that we have everyone. So like I make an effort to like keep my word, because I'm sure, run clubs will start out that way. And then as it gets bigger and more mature, they start to kind of progress towards the faster pacing.
Yeah. Yeah. I always find it interesting, the verbiage that run groups use, and then like what actually happens, and the lack of self-awareness in some of them to realize that like people are being dropped. And it's like, if I wanted to run alone, I would have just stayed at my house.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I would have made the effort to come here. And like, it's really sad that I posted something about this on Threads once, and I got so many responses, like with bad group run experiences and how people were getting dropped, or like, no one was like acknowledging them and stuff. And I was like, that just sucks. I wish you all were in Boulder or Vancouver so you could come to one of our runs.
No. See, that's so sad. Yeah, I know. Like the worst is like you go to a run club and you're like, okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
Because everyone's already in their like little groups, and then you just kind of start the run.
Yeah.
What? Like, okay, do I just like, and I'm a very like, yes, sometimes I might not come across like this on social media, but I'm a very like introverted person, and I'm just not one to like go up to a group and be like, hey, I'm Emelyn, like, can we hang out?
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of, even if people, well, I was going to say, even if people aren't introverts, going to your first group run is very intimidating. And I mean, it only takes one bad experience to turn you off completely from it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So you're still doing that monthly?
Yes, I actually have one coming up this Sunday. So nice. Yeah, I'm excited. It's been a while.
Do you do them on like the same day? Not day, but like first Sunday kind of thing each month, or does it vary?
Yeah, I guess it depends on like holiday, like long weekends, and then if there's like a big race event. But typically it's like the last Sunday of every month.
Oh, cool. Nice. Well, I can put that in the show notes for anyone who's in Vancouver.
Yeah, come out. And we're truly a no-drop crew. I will run and chase people around.
That's so important. Okay, so what has been the biggest adjustment going into triathlon training from running only training?
Oh, gosh. I mean, the bike. There's a lot of TLC that goes into the bike, and like I haven't gotten serviced yet, but I know it needs a lot of like lubing up because the gears or like the chain just keeps clicking on its own or like adjusting on its own. It's a different world, this cycling hobby. So there's a lot of learning there, still lots of learning. And it's funny because it's like, even though, like, say my heart rate, for example, is on the low end, like the legs burn so much more. I just feel like I'm working so hard, but like intensity wise, I'm actually not. It's just like the muscles are just working differently. I don't know. That's the biggest adjustment. I like to think that I'm improving, but it's still really hard. And I did my first big climb, even though it wasn't like on one of the mountains the other week, or other Sunday. But it was a very steep hill. It was like 8 to 9% grade.
Ooh.
I actually don't know what that is in comparison to another hill, but I just know it was very steep. And I just almost cried. And I was like, I want to stop. But I made it to the top, which was great. But yeah. Oh, and then running off the bike as well. Yeah. That one's tricky because I'll be like, wow, my legs are so warmed up. I feel really good that I almost run too fast. I guess it's kind of like the same thing with running, where you want to start conservatively and then, if you have enough juice at the end, push. But there've been a few times where I went a bit too fast, and then towards the end I'm like, oh no, this isn't good.
What has been your biggest brick workout so far?
I would say last weekend, I think. Yeah, so it was a 3.5 hour ride, and then a 50-minute run off the bike, and that actually was decent. That went better than the week prior to that. I think that's been 50-minute brick run has been my longest so far. I know it's going to pick up in a couple of weeks, but that's been my longest.
That's so impressive.
Yeah, I mean the goal is 21K, so 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean that's almost halfway where you are now, so not too far off.
Yeah, I'm only 10 weeks away.
Only 10 weeks?
Yeah,
that's kind of exciting though.
Yeah, time's flying.
Yeah, time really is. What are you most excited about for the race?
Oh my gosh. Hopefully crossing the finish line.
I'm sure you'll cross it, unless something catastrophic happens.
Yeah, knock on wood. But I heard a lot of good things about the swim, because the race starts pretty early, and then I guess with like the sunrise and how it just like sets over the lake, it's just super beautiful. Everyone like raves about it, like soak in the swim, even though like some people have like panic attacks in the water kind of thing because it's just so hectic. But yeah, people are like, this is, especially this course in particular, a lot of people say it's beautiful. So I think that's the one thing I'm looking forward to.
Oh yeah, that sounds like it'll be really nice.
Yeah, just gonna be like popping my head up.
Yeah. Just take you a little break in the water.
Yeah.
And what are you most nervous about?
The bike.
The way that your face just dropped immediately.
Well, yeah, it's so when I first signed up, it said rolling hills. I'm like, oh, great. Like I can get momentum from the downhill to get back up. Yeah. And I mean, I think the most part, it's like that. But I had attended like this briefing session that talked about the course. And this, I guess, guy, I don't know who he was, some kind of race director or something like that, was talking about it. And he said that the last I can't remember how many kilometers, but 75 kilometers, there's going to be a pretty big hill. And so he's like, just prepare for that. Yeah. Yeah. The last 15 kilometers. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So at kilometer
75.
Yeah. Sorry. The last 15.
That's kind of rude.
Yeah. Right. It's like when you're almost there, and it's like, okay, we're just going to give you this big hill.
Up a hill.
Yeah.
Is the run rolling hills too?
No, it's flat on.
Oh, nice.
They say trail, but it's just like the very well managed trail around the lake. So it's like gravel dirt. So
nice.
That'll be my first trail run.
First one ever?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I'll get a little taste of. I mean, it's not like truly like a, I guess, trail run like in the mountains, but it's not on road, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, technically it is a trail run.
Yeah.
So much nicer surface than
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, obviously this is hard to say, you're still in the midst of triathlon training. Do you think you will dabble in trail running later?
Oh, I have no doubt. Actually, oh yeah, fun fact. Last year, one of my goals was to do my first trail run in the summertime. But I
Oh.
think after, what was it? After my half marathon in April, I
Mm-hmm.
hurt my knee. And
Mm,
so my physio was like, stay off hills. And I
mm.
was like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
my goal of running trails was out the
Squashed.
window. Yeah. So,
How close are you to some trails?
pretty close. Like, I mean, I'd have to drive out there, no traffic, half an hour.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
That's actually really nice.
Yeah. And like, there's a lot here in Vancouver.
Yeah, it
So,
looks like it. And it looks so pretty.
yeah, the views are unreal.
Yeah, I know. It just looks like a great city.
You just have to come out one year.
I know. Yeah. I'm still upset that 2020 didn't happen, but we must move on at some point.
Yeah. There's always next year.
There is always next year. I know. I feel like I'm still like traumatized from planning an entire Canada trip and then
And then
dealing with
having a
the
few ruined.
pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly because I don't know if you had any travel plans that got squashed and then you had to deal with like trying to get refunds or anything. And then all the
Oh.
companies were like, sorry, we don't cover a global pandemic. And you're like, excuse me? Like,
Yeah. Oh my
what?
gosh. No, I was lucky. Thank goodness. And we were in
Mm.
the midst of planning. And like we wanted to go to Japan, I think in April or something like that. But then I think that was one of the first countries that had it. And we're like, okay, I guess
Yeah.
not. And then we're like, okay, maybe Italy. And that was like one of the second ones that had it. And we're like, okay, clearly we can't go anywhere.
At least you hadn't planned it yet.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's kind of funny that you chose two of the areas that first had it.
Pardon?
That's kind of funny that the two areas you wanted to go to were.
Yeah. I was like, what are the chances?
Yeah. Yeah. It was like kind of like fate
Yeah,
warning you
it's
away from
true.
it. Yeah. Well, one last question for you,
Yeah.
really. I'm curious who inspires you, whether it's like people on social media or like professional athletes. Who do you look up to?
Actually, like my partner, he
That's so
inspires
cute.
me because I think like prior to dating him, I've always thought there was a ceiling to, everything, certain sports, and there were certain sports that I couldn't do because of, the height or my body type or just who I am.
Hmm.
And so, he was actually the first person that was like, you can do anything you put your mind to. You want to do an ultra, you want to do an Ironman, you can do it as long as you have like the dedication and the passion for it. And he's my number one cheerleader as well. And
Oh,
like, yeah, everything that he does, I want to do because he says I can. So
that's so cute.
yeah, I
It's
know.
so nice to have.
Cheese.
I feel like it's so important to have in a partner too, because like, I mean, obviously you're with them,
Yeah.
hopefully for life.
Yeah. And like, I mean, it's sometimes a bad thing, but like, I love that he supports some of my crazy decisions,
Hmm.
even though it can get a lot. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like he does a lot too. So
yeah, I blame him partly for doing all these things. Just joking. He's also doing, so it's fine. He's actually training for the full marathon, the one that I signed, my first
oh,
one,
uh-huh.
the one that's coming up first week of May. And he's also doing the half Ironman.
So
That's 3
he's
weeks later.
so he's doing the reverse order of you.
Yeah. And then
Although I
his
guess
is only
Chicago is
3
a
weeks
little,
apart. Yeah.
yeah,
Mine at least is like a season
months
away.
apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess Chicago. Are you doing it for funsies? You're gonna try to go for a goal? Have you not even thought that far?
No, I have, and I don't know because it's like it's my first world major, and I want to
Mm,
again soak in the vibes, but it's also one of the flatter ones, and so I'm like,
yeah,
oh, can I have a chance to redeem myself and actually break a sub four? I don't know. I don't know. I'm torn.
yeah. Well, you got lots of time
Yeah,
to decide.
exactly. Or maybe we'll see. Like, what if I go for funsies and then I end up, you know, actually breaking sub four? Who knows? You never know the
Yeah,
day of.
it's true. And sometimes when you go in with no expectations and you like don't have any stress is when you perform your best without even, I mean, obviously you try because you put in the training and
Yeah,
everything, but yeah, without like having your eye on that time the whole time, which can backfire.
That's so true. And I'm definitely going to approach this one differently because I think with my last 2 marathons, it was just focused on running.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to see if I can just add in like the swim and the bike to help with cross training, if that makes any difference. And then, who knows, maybe it'll be a full Ironman next. But, I do want to maintain that because I actually find that it does help my cardio, but like, not putting so much stress on the body because I think I'm quite the injury prone runner.
Yeah. And cross training right now is having a resurgence after Parker Valby I don't know if you've heard about her.
Oh, no.
So she's one of the best runners in the NCAA here in the US in like the collegiate D1 world right now. And she she mostly cross trains. She runs like 3 days a week, if that, and like runs like 30 miles a week, if she had to guess, is what she said in one of her interviews. And she mostly does elliptical for the rest of her sessions. And she just ran a 5K indoors in 14:52.
Stop.
The fastest NCAA time in indoors. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. See, now I need to test that theory on myself because
exactly
that could be it.
It could be it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I feel like cross training is like, not that anything is magic, but like the magic thing for a lot of people who are more injury prone or just like prone to burning out with running, like only running.
Yeah. I'm one of those people for sure. Yeah. So I definitely would love to like, not experiment, but try something different and see. Cause like clearly last year, just like running, just purely running just wasn't good for my mental health. But I mean, there were so many factors at play. So yeah, I'm definitely going to approach it differently this time around.
Yeah. Well, that'd be super exciting. So if anyone wants to follow along with your current adventures and then leading up to Chicago, where can they find you?
You can find me at emelyn.jade on TikTok and then Emelyn Jade on Instagram as well as YouTube. Essentially, Emelyn Jade.
Perfect. And I'll link all of those. But Emelyn, thank you so much for coming on. This was so fun. And
Thanks for having me.
Can't believe it's already been an hour.
I know. We can just keep talking.
I know. See, these TikTok friends are like the best chats.